Hello, I'm Déborah PAPIERNIK. I work at Ubisoft. Ubisoft is a leading creator and publisher of video games with brands such as Assassin's Creed, the Tom Clancy series, Watch Dogs, Far Cry, but also games like Just Dance or The Rabbids. I'm leading the new business department. The aim of this department is to bring into play our brands or expertise to go beyond video game. So we work a lot with entertainment. We do live shows, attractions using virtual reality. We work also in health or mobility, and also a lot in culture with museums or documentary. The idea is to create new impactful experiences for our gamer, but also to reach wider audiences. As I said, our biggest brand is Assassin's Creed. And today I would like to talk to you about Notre-Dame, Journey Back in Time, and how it went from Assassin's Creed Unity to virtual reality. Assassin's Creed was born in 2007. It's an action-adventure game set in different historical periods. The first one was about this Third Crusade, and we explored also the Italian Renaissance, the Golden Age of piracy, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, more recently Egypt, Greece, and a couple of weeks ago, the last opus of Assassin's Creed is Assassin's Creed Valhalla, around the Vikings. Lots of people say that Assassin's Creed is the gateway to history for millions of gamers worldwide. Because our representation of history, because we make history a playground, we make it accessible to people. They play our game and they learn about history without even realizing it. And very often it gives them the willingness to learn more. So it's like learning by playing. On April 15, 2019, Notre-Dame was almost destroyed in a devastating fire. As the tragedy unfolded, people around the world started sharing videos or photos, like sharing all their memories of Notre-Dame. And the gamers among them pulled out their Assassin's Creed Unity game, released 5 years earlier, put it in their console, started playing the game again, and they were posting videos of gameplay of Assassin's Creed. Let me show you a few images. So for this game, we created about 50 monuments of Paris, and just Notre-Dame represented about 5,000 hours of work. It's graphic work. It's not photogrammetry or scanning. It's really handwork based on photos, drawing, visits on site by our team, who was actually in Montreal. So our games are very rooted in history, and the way we work is we have a team of historians, a research team of historians. They start by studying, learning through books, library, internet. Then they work a lot with experts, and they find specific experts around the world, very specialized experts. They work also with community experts. For example, in our game set during the American Revolution, we had to be very careful with the Native Americans and talk with community experts. We also work with weapon experts because Assassin's Creed as you know, is a combat game, and it involves weapons. So we need to be very careful about the representation of the weapons so that they make sense in each period. And last but not least, we work with history fans. There's people who are recreating battles with and recreating costumes, and they're usually very proficient on the topics. We also recreate architecture, and that's an example of a gamer who actually played the game, took screenshots while he was playing the game, and printed the photos and wandered around Paris to show how close they were to the actual monument. But most importantly, we recreate life. Our words, in order to be immersive, need to be believable, and they need to be animated. So we create all kind of life with characters that are usually non-playable characters. They're just here, just like you know, in a movie when you have all these people who are just here to bring life and animation, but they don't have a big role in the movie. It's exactly the same thing in games. And remember, at the very beginning of 3D, when you think about anime 3D for kids, the 3D was really empty. It was beautiful, but it was empty. And in games, you can't do that. If you want to keep the engagement of the gamer, then things need to happen. He needs to believe in the world he's evolving in. And we also use, that's an example where we used actually statuettes from the Louvre to recreate life in Egypt. So these are people here who are making bread, or others who are brewing. And so we gave life to the statuettes. Again, these are non-playable characters, but as you go from one point to the other, you're gonna cross their path. Now, we're rooted in history, but the idea is to create emotion. And I like to give the example of the difference between a touristic picture and a painting of the same place. So you can see that the painting itself is not as accurate in terms of landscape, but it doesn't really matter because the aim is different. And the aim of the painting is to tell a story, and you can feel the drama in the painting much more than in the picture. It's the same thing with video games. We need to create emotion to tell a story. We also need to preserve the gameplay. And for example, in our games, we need to be careful that the player stay very engaged. So, for example, we're going to represent the building much closer than they were in reality, so that when the player needs to go from one place to the other and needs to walk or to use a horse to go from one place to the other, it doesn't take too much time. We need to keep the interest high. The other thing is in terms of representation of the monuments themselves. For example, Notre-Dame, said during the French Revolution, we decided still to, we made the choice to represent a Notre-Dame that is posterior to the French Revolution, the Notre-Dame of Viollet-le-Duc, which is about 70 years later. That means Notre-Dame with its spire and its gargoyles. The reasons why we did that is because we needed a game with a Notre-Dame that's recognizable internationally, and we know that without its spire, Notre-Dame is not as recognizable. And those of you who went to Paris, came to Paris in the last 18 months, realize that when you see Notre-Dame today without its spire, it's not there. It's not Notre-Dame. The other thing is, as you saw in the video, in Assassin's Creed, you climb all the time. And there is this fantasy of climbing as high as possible. So adding the spire adds this verticality. Now, after the fire, Ubisoft gave some money for the reconstruction of Notre-Dame. We also made the game Assassin's Creed Unity available for players to download and keep so that they can play at any time. And we also decided that it could make sense to make even more people get immersed in the Notre-Dame we had recreated and make it accessible even to people who were not gamers. So I asked my team to take the 3D model of Notre-Dame, import it in Unity in virtual reality, and create an immersive virtual reality experience. So they imported the 3D model of Notre-Dame itself, but also lots of models that were surrounding Notre-Dame in the game, so that Notre-Dame is not alone in the VR experience, but it's in the middle of Paris with the Seine around and other buildings and trees. We also imported animation of like a horse or some people, as well as birds and clouds and anything that brings life and makes it the experience more believable and more engaging. In terms of sound, we licensed a recording from one of the last recording on the actual organ of Notre-Dame to give it even more credibility. We were very lucky. We were able to present this experience to people who were actually working on the reconstruction. So the stonemason, the stained glass window makers, but also the architect, the general in charge of the reconstruction, the Archbishop of Paris, the Minister of Culture. All these people, they know every stone of Notre-Dame. And when we showed them the experience and we gave them the warning about the anachronic choices that we made, and the choices in terms of representation, they all tried the experience and they loved it, and they all talked about emotion. And these are people who are professional of Notre-Dame. Now, we also had the opportunity to show the experience during the European Heritage Day in Paris, 6 months after the fire. And we partnered with UNESCO. And I'm going to let you see what the general public has to say.
You're able to really just have a moment where you're taking in the beauty and the architecture of the structure. So I think that's a unique experience provided by the VR.
Pour ceux qui n'ont peut-être pas la chance de venir à Paris, c'est aussi une manière de découvrir le bâtiment.
You had really the feeling to be inside Notre-Dame or on the top.
It's very fun and it gives you a lot of emotions.
So as you can see, it works both with French and people from other countries, and it works for kids, adults, and with grandparents. So that's the magic of virtual reality, which is a technological hard piece of hardware, but at the same time very intuitive and very by its immersion. Now, it took us a while to find a place where we could put it more permanently, and we found it with Paris Musée, who opened an exhibition about Notre-Dame in the archaeological crypt right in front of Notre-Dame, just underground. As soon as the crypt reopens and the sanitary conditions allow, we will have 3 seats with the experience. So the experience itself is 6 degrees of freedom. It was really meant to be room scale, but because the crypt is so small, because of the symbol of being there, it's like we had to be in the crypt. We decided to go for a seated experience in the crypt, but it's still going to be 6 degrees of freedom. We managed to optimize for the Quest, so people are going to be able to bend over the balcony if they want to, even though they're seated and using a Quest. The experience is also available for download for high-end headsets. Unfortunately, Oculus didn't allow us to upload the Quest version, but you have the high-end versions that is available for free from the stores. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you can try the experience soon, either in Paris or from the comfort of your own home if you do have a VR headset. And I'm very happy to answer any question you may have. Thank you very much.